Welcome to Hi Exclusive, right here on Hi TV, your luxury channel. We're here to talk about a great place to work, and I have the honor of being joined by Mrs. Chamila Bandara, who is a member of the Group Management Committee for Haley's Advantis, as well as a director for Advantis Express. Welcome to the show, and I hope you are ready to kind of run us through everything that we need to know about a great place to work. Let me just start off by asking you a few things, right? In these big blue chip conglomerates, there are a lot of aspects that bring in staff and bring in a culture that kind of help people move up and also understand what it's like to be sticky in a corporate. Tell us a bit more about this great place to work. What is GPTW?
Thank you for that introduction, Adam. So for us, as Haley's Advantis and also Advantis Express, culture means everything. So for us, a great place to work, so we want to make our culture better by making it a great place to work, because we work a lot with employees, with large numbers of employees. And so few years back, we started being recognized. We started the assessment, because once you have a culture, it's important to measure the culture. So that's why we thought it's important that we tie up with Great Place to Work Institute, which is founded in the US, and we being FedEx being a US based company, so that was also very important and it was relevant to us. Great Place to Work evolved not as a concept, but it's because we truly felt that it's our duty as an employer to make the place great to all our employees.
Thank you for your response into that detail itself. Another one. What are the main components that make a great place to work, ideally?
Components, it's actually the larger element is your culture. So the culture has to be managed to make it a great place to work. But culture itself is a very large area. So for us, it's a culture canvas itself. So trust is for us, it's the biggest pillar, trust. Then you have many other, say, the company practices, your beliefs, the values, behaviors, how you conduct meetings. It's a whole gamut of practices that make it a great place to work. So it's how an organization defines it. At Haley's Advantis, even currently we are working on a culture canvas, because for us it's important that to realize that what got us so far as an organization. Things have evolved in the past, so we looked at a culture in a different context, but looking at the future, we need to really think differently, because the workplaces, employees, generations have changed. So for us, working on the culture canvas itself is a very important aspect. So all the attributes that I spoke about forms that culture for us, yes.
Brilliant. You mentioned two key things, yes. Trust and how the generation has changed predominantly based on everything that has happened in the past. Another question on that itself, how does this culture help the growth of an organization? Interesting.
As FedEx, we are a licensee of FedEx. So FedEx has this philosophy referred to as People, Service, Profit. We call it the PSP philosophy. So they talk about people. The people element is about when you look after people, in return they give an outstanding service to your customers. So that's the service part, S part. And in return, companies prosper in terms of performance. Profits are generated. So PSP itself is part of our culture. So even for us as Advantis Express, over the years, when we took part in this culture survey as a great place to work, we saw along with the trust level going up over the years, our performance also grew. So that was an important observation we made. So then, I mean, what we feel is as the culture improves, invariably your performance will grow. So it's important for us to focus on that aspect.
You're watching Hi Exclusive. We'll be right back after this break.
Imagine the possibilities.
Haley's Advantis, going beyond.
Welcome back to Hi Exclusive. We are yet again with Mrs. Chamila Bandara to go into deeper detail about this great place to work culture. Mrs. Chamila, you mentioned that over time the generations that have come about have changed their work ethics, the culture, everything has changed. Could you explain to us what this change is? What is this generational change you are experiencing?
Yes. So when it comes to change over the years, apart from external factors that took place, we've seen the pandemic and we've seen how companies have evolved. But something very important also has taken place. That's where companies started realizing that employee generations also have changed, because from baby boomers to Gen Xers, and then the millennials, and even Gen Zs. So even in our workplace, we've realized that 70% of our, the cadre consists of millennials, and part of it, a small percentage, is on Gen Zs. So their behaviors, the expectations of an organization from such an employee differs from generation to generation. I don't think we have that many baby boomers in the workplace, but they probably one of the oldest employees. But majority of them, some of them, the Gen Xers can. I myself is a Gen X. So, so when it comes to how the patterns of how it was evolving over the years, it's important that companies have to create the right cultures to manage these employees' expectations. Because if you see Gen Xers and even the baby boomers are very hardworking. For them, they are not really concerned of work-life balance. For them, it's putting their maximum commitment, putting the number of hours, being very selfless about it. So work probably is everything for them. So they even in an organization, when you have a mix of them, but when majority are millennials are and Gen Zs are very intelligent. They are the most intelligent of generations that we've ever had. They are tech savvy and they are very honest, but they like to have that work-life balance. They are more on, even if they are buying something, they would focus on sustainability, whether this product was made in a sustainable manner. So with these things, and they are very upfront. They, even in our workplace, when we handle such young employees, they ask us, what will I become in about 3 years' time? Can you define my career prospects? So it's very important for us to give them the visibility that they need. So when you handle, and if you don't give that right culture, right environment for them, it's going to be very difficult for employers to retain such employees, because the tendency for the millennials would be not to stay long. Probably maximum would be 3 years in one place. So with all that, I think culture plays a big role. The culture that was there, I think I touched upon this earlier also, culture that was there earlier might not be the exact culture that would suit such an evolved employee workforce. So these things are important for an organization to consider, and this is how employees have evolved.
Brilliant. I think that is quite deep, and I think a lot of these conglomerates do have this gap between the generations and the work culture. Like you said, predominantly the crowd that likes to have a work-life balance are the newer generation that's coming in. So a follow-up on this question actually is, how important is employee engagement? How important is this in nurturing this organization culture that we talk about?
Yes, so employee engagement is the foundation of managing your culture. For us, employee engagement is managed at 2 levels. It comes from our holding company, Haley's Advantis, where a lot of engagement activities are defined and practiced, and also at SBU level, Advantis Express. what we do is we believe when the employees are engaged, they are engaged in the organization as well. You have to engage them in terms of activities. In return, they become engaged in the organization. They are more attuned to the organization, and it's very easy for an organization to manage your performance, your KPIs, goals, everything when your employees are engaged. So with this in mind, what we do is annually we all get together, the top management, we get together and we develop an employee engagement calendar. We make sure that every month it's addressed, every month we do something. For us, celebrations, well, you can celebrate in various ways. It's more than birthdays. We find excuses to celebrate where employees can get together. And it's not again ticking a box, but we enjoy doing that as well. So employees, so what we do is we decide on it, we all agree on it, and with the support of the HR teams, we make sure that this employee engagement calendar is cascaded down to every level of your organization structure, and it's consistently administered so that that feeling of an employee being connected is great.
I think you mentioned something very nice there, saying that you all enjoy doing it, and I think a practice that everyone has is just to tick it, yes, because it has to be done and marked on the calendar. But that's a very good statement there. We'll be right back on Hi Exclusive.
Imagine the possibilities.
Haley's Advantis, going beyond.
Welcome back to Hi Exclusive with Mrs. Chamila Bandara. We've got more questions for her, and let's see if we could find out more about great place to work and what makes it a great place to work. Mrs. Chamila, so how does the senior management get involved in making or creating this culture and, creating this, we say open door policy, open door culture? How does the senior manager and what role do they play in this, in this great place to work culture we talk of?
For us, senior management sets the tone, sets the pace for the culture. And I think before I get deep into the question, would like to make a statement where the FedEx founder chairman, that's Mr. Frederick W. Smith, says that leaders get out there in front and they set the pace and they judge themselves, and they're willing to be judged by their employees. So leaders play that role, and even for us, at Haley's Advantis, at Advantis Express, we have some great leaders that really symbolizes our culture. If we are talking about Haley's itself, our chairman, Mr. Panditage, for us, when he says, he always talks about when he wakes up in the morning, he's very wanting to come to office. So that itself explains the passion that he has, And we have Haley's Advantage, our group managing director, that's Mr. Ruan Vaidaratne. He always talks about having the right people is everything for us at Advantage. So all these things talk about how our leaders think about the culture. And for us, it's always a top-down approach because you cannot control the culture unless you have this top-down focus. So at Advantage Express, how we make sure that it happens is we have defined a code for the senior management. We call it the leadership code. So we've defined certain 8 attributes that a leader at Advantage Express should follow. So what we do is we call it the cool boss attributes because we want the bosses to be cool. And so we do a biannual cool boss survey where his team would rate the boss, and the ratings are open. We share it amongst everyone. Even my ratings are discussed and I share it openly by my subordinates vote me. So what we do is it's very open and there's a lot of visibility in that. And we sit together, the senior management team, and we discuss the ratings, how we can improve. I mean, there were instances when some other leadership team members said my ratings were low, and we help each other, we understand. So when this assessment happens, it's very, the system corrects itself, so we get feedback and we work on improving it. So this is the senior management role that happens, and also what we really stress is that they have to walk the talk. And we always say that the senior leadership team, you have to, when I advise the team, I always tell them that you are always inside a glass box. How you turn, how you walk, how you talk, whatever you do is judged by your employees. It's seen by your people. And it's important that you do the right thing. And even when you have practices, when you have established rules in the company, the senior management cannot violate it. You need to really adhere, then the rest will happen automatically. Your employees will see it. So for us, senior management team, setting that pace to the culture is a very important element.
I think even by the words you're using itself, it kind of speaks out to me that this great place to work culture you have, even within the senior management, there's a lot of trust, a lot of dependability, a lot of accountability, and that itself is giving me goosebumps. So that's something really good to hear. And one more thing for you, the philosophy of a great place to work. How can organizations practice this? And what is this philosophy?
Well, you touched upon the word philosophy. Philosophy for me is a way of life. So how can we make it, how can we make the great workplace a way of life so that it will not change from leader to leader, from head of a department to another? When people change, your culture shouldn't change. So it has to, it's a mix of lot of things. But what I feel is when you have defined your culture, probably some companies have a culture canvas like the one that Haley's Advantage is working on. We are defining every element of your culture so that it is visible. When it's published, what happens is your activities, your KPIs, your measurements should revolve around that. You need to be able to assess it. Culture cannot, you can't just put my values on a piece of paper, hang it in a wall and expect the culture to work itself. It's not going to happen. So what is, how you set the pace is once you define it, you work around it to make sure that it happens, that you execute it, and then when there are deviations, because when you do assessments like Great Place to Work survey, it's one example that we do, but then we also do other surveys. So all these surveys would tell you certain stories. So from these stories, you have to realign your activities if you think it needs to be realigned. Once you do that, and then the practices are formed, norms will be set in the company. Behaviors, because anything when you practice over a long time, it becomes a habit. So what is important is for employees to form, for employer and the employee both, to form right habits. the habit becomes very easy to flow through in an organization, and definitely it becomes a philosophy, it becomes a way of life, and then the culture will flow in it itself.
I think a habit can become an addiction, and if you're addicted to the place you're working for and at, makes this a greater place to work. So these are insightful thoughts, and I think it would help a lot of us who probably belong to conglomerates, who belong to organizations, and that are also engaged in this whole GPTW survey that we talk about. I think it will help all of us to understand that there are elements that actually contribute to organizations that make it a great place to work, and this philosophy we're talking about actually should be made a part and parcel of everyone's work ethic from top to bottom, just like you said. Thank you very much for honestly joining us at Hi Exclusive, and it has been an honor to be able to actually understand your thoughts and where you're coming from with the whole GPTW aspect to organizations. Thank you, Mrs. Chamila Bandara, and you're hearing from Hi Exclusive. See you next time.